Hey guys, let's get more news about Miami Heat, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Why doesn't Heat reverse course, take Beal and end Butler saga? Consequences of each path. The Miami Heat's refusal to take Phoenix Suns guard Bradley Beal's contract has left Miami scrambling to find a deal for disgruntled star Jimmy Butler as Thursday's 3 p.m. NBA trade deadline approaches. The Suns remain the most aggressive Butler suitor and the best hope for Miami to offload Butler, in the wake of ESPN reports over the past day that Butler would accept an extension only from Phoenix and that the Golden State Warriors have stopped pursuing Butler for now after being informed that he will not sign an extension with them. Meanwhile, The Athletic reported Monday that the Warriors are still firmly in the mix to Butler. But with the Suns the most aggressive suitor, that has led some fans to ask, why don't Heat executives simply take Beal, if he waives his no-trade clause to come to Miami? Combined with Phoenix draft picks, the Suns have 3 tradable first-round picks, and simply move on with their lives. This is where the F word comes into play, flexibility. Miami values that more than some other teams do, and acquiring Beal would severely limit that flexibility. And that's why the Suns continue efforts to try to find a third team willing to take Beal, with the hope that he would waive his no-trade clause, in order to facilitate a deal that would land Butler in Phoenix. Those attempts so far have been fruitless, while Butler remains sidelined as he serves his third-team suspension in 5 weeks, one that will extend at least through Wednesday's Heat game in Philadelphia. Though the Heat has been unable to land several All-Stars via trade or free agency in recent years, after snagging Wales' LeBron James, Chris Bosh and Butler in the previous decade, Miami will do nothing to preemptively curtail its chances of landing a star by taking on a particularly onerous contract for a non-All-Star player. Acquiring Beal, and the 2 years and $110 million remaining on his contract, would torpedo plans to add anyone else significant, or costly, to supplement Bam Adebayo and Tyler Herro in the next 2.5 seasons. Having cap space in the summer of 2026 is one reason to avoid taking Beal's contract, but to say that's the only reason would be a mischaracterization. For the Heat, accepting Beal's contract this week also would mean this, because Beal has a no-trade clause, any trade for a disgruntled star, over the next 25 months, very likely would require Miami to include Adebayo or Herro in such a transaction. Here are the 2 potential paths for Miami, one with Miami refusing to take Beal or any significant money that runs past next season, which is its current position, and one with Miami taking Beal or another big contract that extends into 2026 to 27. In that scenario, if the Heat, during the next 13 months adds no player whose contract runs beyond next season, Miami would have only $85 million committed for the 2026-27 season, well under the $170.6 million projected salary cap that season. Even while factoring in modest salaries for Kel'el Ware and Jamie Jaquez Jr., that would give Miami enough space to add a max contract player in the summer of 2026, via free agency. Most stars typically sign extensions now before hitting free agency, or via trade. Keep in mind that Nikola Jovic is eligible for restricted free agency that summer. Luka Doncic reportedly had his eye on Miami and loved Heat franchise. It was always Lakers and Heat. One of the faces of the NBA in Luka Doncic is now a member of arguably the most storied franchise in the league. On Sunday, he was traded to the Los Angeles Lakers in a move that came as a major shock to a lot of people. Per NBA analyst Kevin O'Connor, 2 teams had long been linked to Doncic in rumors as landing spots if he were to leave the Dallas Mavericks, and one of them was the Lakers. But the other team was the Miami Heat, and O'Connor alleges that the Slovenian has admiration for the Miami franchise and enjoys the climate down there as well. My initial reaction was like, oh, Luka must have demanded a trade, O'Connor said of the 3-team deal. He must have asked out to go directly to the Lakers, one of the 2 teams that's long been rumored as his potential destination if he were to ever leave Dallas. It was always Lakers and Heat, always Lakers and Heat. For years, that's what it's been. I've always heard Luka loves the weather in Miami. He loves the franchise there. The Heat might soon be in need of a new face of the franchise, and a player of Doncic's talent level certainly could have checked that box. Jimmy Butler has been the head of the snake for the Heat for years now, but it appears as if his time in Miami could come to an end soon. He admitted in early January after a loss to the Indiana Pacers that he has lost his joy for the game of basketball and doesn't think he can get his joy back with the Heat. Ever since then, he hasn't been a consistent presence on the floor for Miami. He's currently serving his third suspension since the month of January, and that suspension will be for an indefinite period of time. The acquisition of Doncic would have helped to soften the blow of potentially losing a player of Butler's talent. After all, like Butler, Doncic is a gifted scorer. He's averaging 28.1 points per game on 46.4% shooting from the field and 35.4% from deep this season, and he led the NBA in scoring in the 2023-24 campaign. With Doncic now a member of the Lakers, Heat fans are only left to imagine what the team could have accomplished this season and in the coming seasons with the Slovenian owning the keys to the squad's offense. Mavericks could acquire Jimmy Butler. Indiana wild trade scenario, nothing can surprise us anymore. The Dallas Mavericks were reported as a potentially interested team in Jimmy Butler before his trade saga with the Miami Heat even started. At the time, everyone including us brushed it off because the Mavericks would have to give up way too much to make the deal happen. Now that they've done something even more unfathomable by trading Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers, it might as well be time to take their potential interest in Jimmy Butler seriously. The Miami Heat clearly can't find an offer for Butler, but if the Mavericks want him, there's essentially only one formulation of a package that the team could offer while keeping Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis on the squad. It would make the Mavericks incredibly old and less versatile, but it's entirely plausible. GM Nico Harrison values Butler as a veteran star more than the outgoing assets in this mock trade. Trade details: Dallas Mavericks receive Jimmy Butler, Miami Heat receive Klay Thompson, Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington. The Mavericks literally cannot offer any other variation of this trade, as Thompson, Gafford, and Washington would be mandatory inclusions in any formulation. The Mavericks would still be adding salary to their books by making this happen, but will land an absolutely elite perimeter co-star for Kyrie, who could be the perfect bridge between Kyrie and Davis on the court. Right now, the Mavericks have a slightly misshapen roster after dealing Doncic away. They have an abundance of swing men who are too small to be forwards, but not nearly skilled enough on ball to point guards. Max Christie joins the likes of Klay Thompson, Quentin Grimes, and Dante Exum in that mix, while the Mavericks also have someone like Najee Marshall as a 6 feet 6 inches forward on the roster. Adding Butler reinforces their wing position with the same level of talent we see at guard and center. Jimmy Butler is averaging 17.0 points, 5.2 rebounds, and 4.8 assists on the Heat this season, but would be unleashed in Dallas. He'd also be the de facto playmaker for the franchise, given the lack of passing creativity on the roster now that Doncic is gone. The Mavericks would essentially field a big three of Kyrie, Butler, and Davis, with Grimes or Christie in the backcourt and Marshall as the three for a double big lineup of Davis alongside Derek Lively too. With Exum back from injury, the promising progress of Olivier Maxence Prosper, and the additional space for Spencer Dinwiddie and Jaden Hardy, the Mavericks would still have a playoff-caliber roster. This wouldn't be a great use of their assets by sending players like Gafford and Washington to Miami for a Jimmy Butler with virtually no trade value. But the Mavericks don't worry about trade value when they have their eyes set on a player. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Jimmy Butler? Leave your opinion in the comments.